Welcome, hola, what's good? Hey, y'all, hey. You are tuned in to Circle Up with Amanda Hurd. Episode 5, Breathe. This is only the beginning. When running a race, our main goal is to reach the finish line. The distance is never a matter. Rather short or long, we plan to reach the goal. Many times the race begins with the overload of confidence, believing that absolutely nothing can stop us from getting to the end. On your mark, get set, go. Here we are breezing through the first round of purpose, giving it all that we have. Our very best is all that we know. Releasing much energy, focusing only on the outcome, while blurring the current, meaning not realizing what's right in front of us. Now here we are gassing out, forgetting to fuel with hoping that our next step isn't going to lead to passing out. It is so important that we push forward in all that we do and balance out all that we have. But in order to finish the race, we must find time to reset, meaning breathe. Take a moment to readjust. It's only then will we break through the threshold, renewing our strength to carry out the race. This episode is recorded to encourage you to rest, to breathe, refuel, and get your strength back. Running the race is a beautiful thing. However, it can become tiresome and very heavy at times. But with the necessary and proper adjustments, it will feel like it's only the beginning. So grab your snacks, drinks, and chairs, and let's get ready to circle up. Welcome back, welcome in, welcome home, welcome friends, welcome family. Thanks again for circling up with us. Now that we are all here at the table, let's dive right in. So first things first, if you know somebody who may be struggling or with the feeling of needing to rest, I encourage you to share this episode with them. If you're closely connected to them, or even if you're not, even if it's like a long reach for you, go ahead and send that invite, or just send that text that shares the link to this episode with them, because it is so important that we control our breath throughout the race so that we have what we need to push to the finish line. So let's dive right in. Rest. Rest is one of the greatest gifts that God has given us. He speaks about this gift or this particular thing so many times in the Bible. His word tells us time after time, from the beginning to the end, pretty much, the importance of rest. He shows us in many different stories and many different highlights. So we get this fulfillment that it's not only in one area or one thing where we as the people need to find rest, but it's everywhere. It's all over. We find that this journey that we're on is very hectic. It's very chaotic. And what I mean by journey, this life, our lives that we live, our everyday movements, our everyday things that we do, whether it's a family thing that you're doing, whether it's a business thing that you're doing, whether it's church, ministry that you're doing, our lives hold so much in it that it requires much from us. And in order to get to the finish line, the finishing place, in order to fulfill it, live it in its entirety, we are going to need to find our breath. We are going to need to know how to control the pattern in which way that we breathe. So, a few different stories I'd like to share today. Y'all, here I go again with this workout plan. So y'all know from a few episodes before, for those of you all who have been following or who have been tuned in, I do not like to work out whatsoever. Your girl is just not one that, wants to do these things. However, sometimes I can just feel my body calling me to strengthen itself. And so this year I decided to take on running. I was like, okay, I'm going to challenge myself to be able to run. I haven't set a full goal of how far I want to get, or, how long I want to run, but all I know is I need to get out there and push myself in a way that I haven't been pushed before. And so I started running, and when I got to the track that I run at, I I looked at it and I was like, "Oh, this isn't a bad track. This is going to be a piece of cake. This is going to be a breeze." I'm looking at it like, it's just from point A to point B, and this A and B are like side by side. They're not too far. It's literally, I don't even think it's a mile. I got this. I got this. And so I jump into this thing with the feeling and the just amazingment of knowing that I'm going to be able to finish this thing hands down. This journey isn't going to be anywhere near as hard as my 100-day workout. Y'all, listen. As soon as I started to lift right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, I'm sure it was about 10 to 15 seconds max when my breath was like, hold up, wait a minute, you are not built for this. And I was like, yes, I am. You got this. You got this. Keep going. Keep. And I'm telling you, I was breathing so choppy that it was ridiculous. I'm so thankful that I had a partner, because listen, if she wouldn't have kept going, if she would have been like, look, I'm down and out too, I would have been right along with her. I would have tag teamed and said, me too, because this is not the life right here. But anyway, I learned within those first few seconds that, wow, I'm going to have to learn how to control the pattern of which way I breathe, because without that, how am I going to have any reserved energy for later on? How am I even going to reach the finish line if I can't control my breath long enough to make it halfway through? And with that being said, I just began to get so much revelation in that moment. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think how this could relate, or it wasn't purposed for this to relate. To the beginning, there was so much excitement. In the beginning, all we could think about is what was to come out of the ministry, and we were so excited. We had all these plans and all these goals, and it was literally something that was already in us. The finish was already in us. We already knew what to expect somewhat. We already knew what we wanted it to look like, what we expected it to feel like. We already knew everything beyond what was right in front of us, and it was as if the situation would continuously, be in our face, reminding us that, look, this is something more than the finish. This is something that requires more than the finish. Look, I need you to be able to breathe now so that you can finish later. If you don't stop what you're doing and rest in me now, then there's no way that you can make it to the end. You need to breathe. You need to rest. You need to find peace in the midst of this all. This is a roller coaster that has all types of surprises and heights and drops in it that you are not even aware of. Listen, breathe, listen, rest. And so even though you can feel that from time to time, even though you can feel the pressure of rest from time to time, still our minds would go to a place of, sleep. A lot of times we equate rest to sleep. Most times when you hear people tell you, oh, yeah, you just need to rest, we automatically think like, oh, you just need to sit down somewhere and take a nap, because we think that when you sit down or when you lay down, go to sleep and take that time aside or set that side away, you feel that or you more so have this belief that everything's going to be okay. You're going to have more energy, more power to keep going. You're going to be fulfilled. You're going to, like they say, those power naps just give you all that you need, that boost that you need to keep going. And so I don't know where along the lines we picked that up and held on to it so long, but I'm here to explain a little deeper about the particular rest that we need to carry out this journey. This rest, the rest that is considered a gift that was given to us from God, it's closely associated to peace. And see, peace, it's so funny somewhat that peace is closely associated with it, because when you think about the journey, or when you think about your life, and you think about just the many different things that you may be involved in, you think about how sometimes stressful it can be, or how sometimes, overwhelming it can be. But when you add peace, when you insert peace into those moments, you see how those times can calm back down. You see how those times become little to none stress at all. You see how those times can be so much smoother when you insert peace in them than just trying to insert sleep. Because one thing about sleep is, sleep isn't always promised that you are gonna wake up happy. They say a lot of times, oh, if you wake up in an attitude, they say you woke up on the wrong side of the bed. If you go to sleep and you're uncomfortable, or it's hot, or it's too cold, or the situation isn't set right, the tone isn't set right, then you don't wake up feeling as boostful as you would if you had peace inserted instead of sleep. There's a lot of people, and I'm one of them, that, I go time and time again in different seasons where I struggle with falling asleep. And then I can get to sleep, and then I struggle in my sleep. There's so much going on in my dreaming, or there's so much, going on with my mind that, the sleep doesn't provide the answer that I need. I sleep, and then I wake up still thinking about all that needs to be done, all that still has to take place. And so we find, if we really dissect that, we find that sleep isn't the answer when we're talking about rest here. We find that there has to be something deeper or greater that this gift is stuffed with. And so I did some seeking, I did some digging, I did some searching, and I found that peace is the actual rest that God is talking about. And I find that Christ doesn't desire us to rest from the work, but rest in the work. So it's not that he's saying take time off from this thing, sit out and move away from this thing for some time. You need to take a standstill in this journey and go to sleep until you get your strength back. No, he's actually saying that in this, through this, there's something that I have that I can give to you if you lean on me, if you put yourself in a place where now you can hear and receive what it is that I have gifted you with, which is this peace. It will allow you to continue in the journey. It will allow you to push forward. It will allow you to find that pattern of breath that you need in order to move throughout the whole journey. So it's funny because so many times I have tried to just go to sleep and find that tone of rest. I've tried to go to sleep and wake up and start over. I've tried to take a nap and wake up and start over. I've tried to just don't do anything for a whole day. Let's take the whole sleep out of it, and let's just use this calmness of not doing anything, allowing your mind to be free and allowing your mind to just be open to what's going on. I allowed myself to laugh a little, to shop a little, to just get out there and do some things that make me happy, that maybe this will release some of the confusion or the stress that that's going on at this time in the journey. And still I lined myself back up. When I came back up and went back into the work and started moving again along in the race, I found that I still was coming to a place where my breath felt like it was being suffocated, where my breath felt like it was dissolving, like it was going from little to none. I felt myself in these attacks, these somewhat panic attacks where it just seemed like my mind wasn't functioning right because I couldn't think right. I was losing my train of thought every time I opened my mouth. My eyes were just extremely exhausted because I felt like I was up from bright early in the morning before the sun came up until late in the midnight hour when the sun was about to come back up again. And so there was just no really great sense of balance. And so when I found myself getting things balanced out, and I found myself just pushing through that time frame and finding things, to weigh, put on this side versus the other side, it seemed like things began to work out a little bit more for me, but I was still struggling with the feeling of needing to rest. And so it's as if everything I did, everything I was doing still wasn't creating the answer to the situation I was in. And so I seeked and I began to search and I began to find, like, what is it that I'm doing wrong in this rest? What is it that I'm doing wrong, in these steps? Why is it that I'm starting to hear more and more people around me say that they're feeling the same way? Say that, they are I'm in that boat with you, girl. We in the same boat. Why is it that I'm hearing these things? Why is it that it feels like every time I turn around, somebody is feeling as if they are completely overwhelmed, or they feel like they just have to keep pushing, they have to keep going because God called them to do this work, or I have to keep going, I have to keep pushing because my kids are depending on me, or I have to keep going, I have to keep pushing because if I don't, my life depends on it. Like my job, if I make one wrong move, one wrong turn, then I'm falling through the cracks and everything is over for me. If I don't, if I don't go here, if I don't go there, if I don't do this, if I don't do that, why is it that just the slightest move takes so much breath from me? What is it? How do I move past this? How do I get the correct rest that I'm seeking? And it came to me. It literally unfolded right before me. It literally unfolded right in the middle of me getting out there and running, me getting out there and starting this new, goal to be able to push myself to a limit that I haven't quite reached yet. As I was running, as I was going, as I was giving it everything that I had, I remember, feeling like just stop, just stop. Just stop. If you don't stop, your very next step is going to lead to you laying on the ground. I remember hearing the girl I was running with. She said, "You know what's funny? It's like everything begins to get better right when you reach past everything begins to get better right when you reach past the threshold." And automatically, something just triggered, something clicked, everything began to make sense. I was like, you know what, that is so right. I don't know about anybody that's listening, but there was a time when I used to go to the gym. And at the gym, they have hundreds of treadmills. Everybody is there, either fast-paced walking, incline walking, jogging, running, or whatever on these treadmills. Well, when I used to go to the gym, that was the first stop I always made. Because they were right there at the door, and it seemed like that was just what you were supposed to do to get your body moving and going and heated up. And so I would get on that treadmill and I would start running, and it's a little different running on a treadmill than when you're running outside. I feel like running outside takes everything out of you. When you're running on a treadmill, it's like, okay, you feel like you can do it, And so I was running on a treadmill. I was running on a chair room. Doom, 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 doom. I can hear, the rhythm of my feet going, the rhythm of my feet. And then when I started to become out of breath a little bit, I began to hear me huffing and puffing, but I would tune in to the rhythm of my feet, and that kept me going. That was what I used to push me through when I would run on the treadmill. But it's like by the time I wanted to give up on the treadmill, I literally would hit this threshold that no longer did my legs really feel like they were noodles and they were about to just, drop me right to my face, or no longer did they feel like the workout was so hard and so intense. It felt like everything was smooth sailing. And so every time I would my journey of getting on the treadmill, I would literally just focus on getting to the threshold, because I knew that when I got to the threshold, that literally everything I needed was right there that was going to help me keep going. And so I shared that story because there's something very important in there. The important thing in that story is the threshold. Getting to the threshold. So understanding that rest isn't just going to sleep and reboosting your energy, but rest is finding that peace. And the peace is the gift that is given from God and God alone. So once we grab hold of the peace and we begin to allow peace to literally suffocate all of those areas in our life where we find ourselves in panic, or we find ourselves in stress, or we find ourselves in ways and areas that is hindering us from going on. Insert peace. Allow peace to literally take over those places. And how do you allow peace to do that? You lean on God instead of leaning on your own self words or self encouragement or self knowledge. Lean on his wisdom, lean in his word, lean in his teachings, and these things will open the door for peace to override your situations. You see, when you tell yourself that you can do it, but you have no backbone of him in it, then it's easier for you to give up on yourself. But when you allow him to be increased in you, you won't give up on yourself, because now there's a greater work that's working inside of you. So lean on him, lean in his teachings, and his word will provide the peace to align in those places in your life. But to the threshold, now getting to the threshold. So to the threshold is so important, because when you have that peace and you're riding that line of peace, now that peace is literally taking over. Now that peace is literally controlling the atmosphere of your career, your family, your job, your ministry, your everyday routine. Now that peace is literally the guideline in that. You can rely on the threshold. In the threshold is the place where your strength will literally be renewed. Everything that you need to finish the race will be there for you. The water of refreshment will be there for you. What does that look like? What does that sound like? Many times when we're working hard at something, or when we're going deep into something, we find ourselves in this place where we begin to boast in ourselves. We find ourselves in this place where we begin to depend on our own wisdom. We find ourselves in these places that have hardened our hearts to outside knowledge. We find ourselves in this place that shows, or more so builds this lack of knowledge to God's word, this lack of faith to God's word, a rejection to God's word. And so in order to freely reign in that threshold, we have to reverse all of those things. Instead of dwelling in the lack or the rejection of his word, find ourselves embedded in his word. Instead of finding ourselves or resting in the lack of his knowledge, find ourselves leading, going, moving in his knowledge. If he tells us and shows us that, we are conquerors, then move and go and grow in that, instead of telling yourself that you can't do it, instead of telling yourself that it's time to give up, instead of telling yourself that, what's best. Move according to what he says, because what he says is the final answer, and what he says is what restores You see, it's his word that restores and refreshes us. It's his word. This is past the threshold, y'all. It's his word that gives us what we need to finish the journey. It is in his word that provides us the wisdom that is greater, that surpasses what we know. It is in his word that when we boast in him, when we boast in his word, when we repeat, what I mean by is giving high praise and repeating his words, his praise, it opens up this room of refreshment. And when we are in that place, when we find ourselves submerged in that room, in that place, there is nothing that can stop us from reaching the finish line. There is nothing that can keep us from finishing the race. There is nothing that can stop the pattern of our breathing. It will literally feel like it's only the beginning. So listen, y'all, I encourage you today. I encourage you strongly today to get rid of anything that is within you that may literally try to keep you in a place of suffocation, a place that suffocates you in only believing what you seem to have filled yourself with, only believing with the mindset of you know what's best, only believing and moving according to self. Because in that place, it will have you stop in the middle of the journey. You will literally believe that you can keep going because you slept well. You can keep going because you worked out long enough where your mass muscles can keep you, moving or whatever. You can keep going because, you've trained for this. You're healthy enough for this. But I'm trying to tell you this. And this I'm trying to tell you from a place of knowing that without him, without his word, without his peace, the finish line will literally fade. But through him, with him, is one step ahead. Keep going, keep moving, keep growing. I encourage you all to find rest, allow peace to take over, and be blessed.